The southwest corner, ladies and gentlemen, currently trailing one game, everything to play for in this best of 7 series. However, in the blue trunks playing Terran, it's TSL Polt. Versus his opponents. It's like, you're going to have to third base. Consider it my gift to you. Playing for Team Millennium, and in the red trunks playing ZerG to the northeast, it is Stephano.
So at these big events, IPL 3, lucky 4-0, apart from the ESW final, but the semi-final beating Marine King Prime also, is he about to add TSL Polt to his achievement list? We're about to find out, man. Like I said, it's still a best of 7. It's going the full distance, so despite winning the first game, Polt has full experience here, obviously being the GSL Super Tournament winner, knows what it takes to be a champion, and we saw today, especially those Terran versus ZerG games, we saw a champion in the making, but is Stephano going to prevent that from happening? And if it goes anything like game number 1, from being behind at the early stages of the game, to being on 2 base versus a Terran on 3, to come back with just a single counterattack to change the entire of the game, and man, Stephano could easily add that to his achievement list of beating Polt.
It would be very, very nice indeed, and it would also add to his reputation. He is actually feared in Korea, and a lot of people try to figure out how to beat him. And in the past, he has been out theory crafted. If you recall correctly, the games with the STC in IPL 3, and then of course the rematch against the STC went the other way. And arguably the entirety of OGS sat down and said, here's how you beat Stephano.
Need to get myself in Team OGS, because I don't know. And I'll take Bling with me too, because he needs help too.
Oh, well, that's a nice thing to say.
It's alright, he knows it, that's the funny part. Alright, so once again, we've gone for Spawn and Pool, then into Extractor, and Stephano, how to beat him, man? That is the question. And Polt is the one I'm looking to for answers, Dr. Kid. When we had the opportunity to commentate that previous game on Antigua Shipyard, game number 3, I was like, I don't know how to beat this, at that stage of the game.
Yeah, the late game Broodlord, yeah.
And I'm like, I'm just going to look to Polt for answers, and he provided, so he definitely will once again here. Yeah,
the funny thing is, I kind of feel a bit dumb for not realizing it, because the exact same way that people used to beat Broodlord before Ghost actually became popular, but it was very, very well executed, and so well done. Now, Polt would love to get this finished, but the Lings are going to say no, and easily shut that down. Admittedly, it's only 2 Lings, but in comes the surround, drives that Ling off, surrounds the other. Very, very nicely done. And, he doesn't save the drone, never mind, but that's a nice little bit of pressure from Polt. Prevent mining time, kills a drone, which is wonderful. That almost makes it worthwhile in itself.
Absolutely, kills the drone and a couple of Lings there. It's a bit of a mistake from Stephano. He clicked on the hatchery to deposit the minerals that were in hand, when he should have just run it behind, and it had that little stop, and Stephano, a little bit of a mistake there, but, well, actually, I'm not going to say but. This is the final, man. You can't do that here. Like, every little bit helps and gives Polt that advantage going into the mid stages of this game. We do, once again, have a very similar build from Polt, and I don't think Polt's a player that we're going to see too much variation with. He's very much so a player that relies on his control, relies on his, aggression with medivacs as they come out, and of course, that Marine splitting, and then his late game intelligence. So I don't think we're going to see hardly anything gimmicky from Polt unless Stephano starts first.
Well, the Roach Warren is up quite early, one has to say, much earlier than you might expect, and it is the same opening from Polt, the Reactor, Hellion Expand, but he's got to run into Roaches, and this Roach Warren is in an interesting location because the creep hasn't been spread that far. Polt could very easily find it if he decides to run onto creep, and I have to wonder if that's deliberate. Hellions are poking on, they haven't spotted the Roach Warren just yet, and how many Roaches will we see?
A lot of Roaches, followed by a lot of Zerglings incoming, and he spots the Roach Warren there as he pokes up the ramp, as you stated, in a bit of a weird position, and all of a sudden Polt's like, oh, okay, cool.
Oh my.
So he's going to start Marauder production, of course, will bunk himself in, but we've seen Polt in this position already today.
Oh, yes.
And he survives even if he has to go back to 1 base, and this time around he spots it really early, even before the Roaches pop. So he actually has a better reaction time than he would do normally.
Definitely.
And right now he's thrown down you know, extra barracks, and he's actually just like, all right, well, I was going to say, is he going to go ahead and expand? I'm like, no, you shouldn't really do that. And he's just going to be sitting behind the wall, and there's nothing to bring down the supply depots fast enough, even with the Roach and Ling, and we do see a bit of a counterattack here by Polt, a risk he can take if he stays on one base.
And very smart as well, because it does force the Lings to actually try and deal with it. A lot of Lings got picked off, which is blunted this attack here by Stephano. Will it blunt it enough? He even managed to take a Roach out there with those Hellions. There's still 5 there to cause a whole heap of problems and trying to stretch Stephano's multitasking, saying, if you're going to attack me, you're going to have to deal with this too.
The thing is that the more important thing, I mean, actually, if these go in to kill drones, that's going to be the more important thing, but okay, I'll go ahead and explain it after this finishes. Queen does go down to Little Biscuit, and now the Roach is knocking on the front door.
And there are 2 Marauders to try and stop it, and repairs actually go up in time? No, they will not. It breaks. And in the meantime, there's the harassment coming in. Good splitting there by Stephano to keep most of that alive. Lings are about to pop, and they should be able to shut that down. A bit of a surprise there for Polt. And there we go, ripped to pieces in the natural. Stephano making his way through, but he can't get in to do damage. There are too many Marauders there to stop it.
All right, so what I wanted to go in and say, but it would have taken a while, so I didn't.
Indeed.
Is that the Hellions, as a Terran player, all right, guys, get your notepad out. As a Terran player, you have 2 options. You either come back with the Hellions and defend with them and defend against the Lings, or 2, you go and do that, and you don't go for a counterattack in terms of killing drones, you prevent the Ling reinforcements. Because then all of a sudden you only have X amount and a small percentage of an army to deal with, and the strength of that kind of all-in, not really all-in, but that aggressive opening, is the reinforcements streaming in and Lings, and you just keep on hammering away, which is what Polt stopped efficiently there, and why it was so easy of a hold for him, and a lot of other Terran players struggle so hard against that.
Yep. There was damage done when he went in there. He was able to kill 8 SCVs, including, of course, the one that was killed on Stephano's natural there. So it certainly was a decent investment. He throws away basically minerals and a tiny bit of gas to slow down the economy. And that's not the only way he slowed it down. He delayed that expansion for a very long time. A lot of potential mining time thrown away there. A lot of oversaturation on the main mineral line, which means, of course, that mines out faster.
And once again, Stephano here on the left with Lings, looking to go in now, expecting the units to be in the center as you were looking at the Zelnoga Tower being cleared. Stephano didn't quite get that right, but it's still worth a try most definitely. And oops, that was a little bit of a slip up.
Yeah, don't do it. Polt will find the right position, and every single time he nails it, he knows, like, I want to engage here, right over there, so there's no surface area for you to hit me with Lings. He's great at that. He always picks his battles.
And the thing is, what I've seen with Polt throughout the entire of the tournament is he's actually very good at defending against counterattack. Always leaves units behind, always has a siege tank there as well, and always walls in key locations. But we do see Polt moving out now, and there's a lot of Lings in production for Stephano, and +1 carapace is about to come into play. There's no upgrades at all for Polt, so these Lings will survive, and he actually can't pick up everything here, so he's definitely going to have to lose some units, but he has stopped Stephano from making drones. As you can see, so many Lings are here.
Oh, and there is the surround. Lands right on with the +1 carapace and starts to slice his way through there. There's the pickup, but loads of damage done by Stephano, nothing done by Polt whatsoever, and you know what? I think those Lings are going to follow him home.
They will, and they won't really be able to achieve anything just as Lings. There is that wall off being completed, and we do have a 3rd base from Polt. Already in his main base, he's using the mules, which is going to enable him to go for this engineering bay, to go for this +1, and then very soon add the 2nd engineering bay, and really pushes upgrades forward because of that strength and that economy boost he's going to be given. But he doesn't want to move out to take an expansion yet, and he actually needs to lift that supply depot, otherwise, okay, there's not that many Lings there, but he doesn't want to move out to take a 3rd base right now because the amount of presence that Stephano has on the map, it's so much. There are so many Lings around, and one loss of a big engagement, one big army, if Polt loses it, could be game ending, could be just 0-2 down.
Very much so. Polt's infrastructure looking pretty good considering the damage that he took earlier. Indeed, he's managed to catch up a little bit just simply because of the fact that Stephano hasn't built a huge number of drones. He's building a ton of Zerglings. He's actually at 73. He's going to be over 100 very soon, which is an interesting style, but it does work. He's played it an awful lot against Terran in Europe as well as Koreans. It is effective, and he is also catching the upgrades up very well. And actually, if there's one thing I'll say about Polt, it's that his upgrades in this matchup have been fairly lackluster, and it's hurting him badly.
Indeed, he is working on the second engineering main armory now. We'll be able to continue into that. He does have 2 tanks now, a second factory being produced too, so he can kind of just build that can up. And he's already starting towards that third base. You can see the green illusions of the supply depots and bunkers coming in. So he's going to narrow the area, which Stephano will ideally want to go for. And what we could see from Stephano right now is a pronged double attack going into the natural area and also the third base, because he has so many lings. But it looks like he's running to the bottom right-hand side of the map. I'm not too sure why. There's no drops or anything coming, so he doesn't need to be down there. But at the same time, Stephano throws down the hive. Well, not really throws down the hive, but does upgrade to the hive now.
Oh, yes, and Stephano's going to be throwing down an entirely different way over here, but he is stopped by the presence of all of these units over here. Little unpleasant bunkers up as well. Doesn't want to get too close to that. I really am not actually sure what they are doing down there. I think they're worshipping at this green glowy altar over here for whatever reason. I don't know why.
And no scan down from Polt yet. No idea what Stephano's doing, but he doesn't really care too much at the moment. He's just trying to get that third base up. And that's when we'll start to see a bit of scouting, scanning, dropping, and so on. Because he needs to know what Stephano's doing. And we do see a drop now, first of all, going down the south side here for Polt. And we'll be going towards that bottom right expansion. But links are already there, already set up. And still no scan yet from Polt. Meanwhile, is Stephano. No Spire has come down, so we will be going Ultralist once again here.
It seems to work, certainly. Polt's tank count is starting to get pretty high, but it's not really the tank count that matters so much, it's the Marauder count. And Marauder count is actually getting pretty reasonable, but upgrades. Polt is behind in that regard, and he's going to get punished for it. Stephano looking to easily surround that so quick. Picks off an Infestor and is just immediately out of there.
And I think Polt's just blindly accepting that Ultras are coming. He's watched Stephano play multiple times. He hasn't scanned, yet he does have a decent amount of tech labs on barracks. He's building a lot of Marauders, as you can see. There goes the scan. Does see the Hive, but doesn't see the Ultras Cavernous. Once again, Stephano throws it onto the natural, but that's what I'd like to see from Stephano, is just throw in that switch. You know, late game, at 16, 70 minutes, just go ahead and be like, no, I'm going to actually go Brutalist this time, because it looks like Polt is just accepting that Ultras are coming without knowing for sure.
The thing about Stephano is, especially if you remember his IPL3 performance, something that I noted was he will use the same style until it fails on one map and then he switches, which is why I think he's doing this. And you see this in multiple tournaments. He doesn't just keep switching up. Yes, he will vary his opening, but he will go into the same style over and over again. And that's an interesting little move there by Stephano.
And a double medivac drop into the main base here is picked up immediately, as Stephano has lings everywhere, but is about to lose a large chunk of lings in the bottom left. Will he be able to achieve anything? Oh, well, actually that third base is quite naked, but he doesn't go there and tries to get the tanks instead.
Well, he's going to take a tank and Marauder and so on and so forth, whether or not the trade was worthwhile. Well, to be fair, he's mining from 4 bases, and it's just lings, so it doesn't really matter. He's also unlocking supply, I feel, for more Ultras. You'll see how close he is there, so I think that was deliberate from him.
And Stephano does clean up a drop in the main base with Infestors there, but nothing left to see, but it was pretty straightforward with Infestors. But now the more important part, Thorobiscuit, is Polt surging towards that bottom right base. Will be able to get into decent position, and by God, these tanks are.
They really, really are. There's a lot of them as well. And the Lings try to come in from that side, and they're stopped. The Lings come in from this side. 3-pronged attack here by Stephano, but Polt crushes it completely. Very nicely played there by him. Those positions were perfect.
Yeah, he should have waited for the Infestors, really. And now he's going to take significant losses. The Infestors do come in alone, but could easily get sniped off by these units. And Polt should be bunny hopping tanks towards that expansion. He is also taking the center of the map as well. Really good play here from Polt. And he's establishing a nice little position here. There is, well, these lings on the natural burrowed here. There was a bit of a counterattack, but nothing really happened there. They're just kind of sitting there underneath the ground, ready to go into the main.
Yeah, that actually could be very, very annoying. If he waits for +3 and then just pops them in there while the supply depots are down, he could actually do a lot of damage. Or even jump on that supply little train over there. In the meantime, the engagement is coming in. Stephano charging his way through once again, trying to break the tank line, and successfully doing so. He's got Ultras, he's got Infestors. The Infestor Terran pops up under there. He burrows as well, which is very nice to see. The tanks still remain alive, however. There's not that many left, though.
Look at the upgrades. Why did Stephano go in right then? He had to wait 5 to 10 seconds more, and everything would have been fully upgraded. And once again, a small little mistake here by Stephano, which is uncharacteristic, but Polt takes full advantage of this and will be streaming more and more units down here. But Stephano does manage to hold on to that expansion for now, but Polt can easily back off to these tanks.
Yes, yes, he can. The tanks are getting cut down one after another, but the Ultras are taking a lot of hits in the process. Marauders are kiting those Ultras very effectively, very well done. Lings remain there, which is interesting, but actually this is great. I mean, look at the amount of information he gets from those being there. It's incredible.
Absolutely, he sees the reinforcements continuing to stream in, and once again, Stephano only building units, knowing that he has to push Polt away from this location. You cannot let him just stay here with tanks and keep reinforcing to this place. And we do see Ultras coming now. How many are actually out? We do have 3 out, but I just don't feel there's enough, and especially as +2 armor kicks in, and +3 attack, and for the infantry that is, and +2 about to finish on the tanks here.
Yeah, he's really tightened up his upgrading, which is good, because that was something that Stephano had a big edge to. Unfortunately, that Ultralisk is wandering to its doom. It just doesn't want to live anymore.
Oh, a counter-attack. Well, actually, it was going to be a counter-attack, but Stephano stops. What is he doing? He's like, which way should I go? Is it down? Is it up? And a scan goes down and is like, well, I know where you are.
Yes, indeed. A couple of Lings just run in. Inefficient trades, but you know, tries to go from behind, which will smash through the majority of the tanks. Polt is still well spread out here, but the Lings now move in and rip their way through one tank and the second. The cleanup is coming. He's finally managed to break it. Nicely done there by Stephano, and a nice grab at the back with those.
Finally, and he forces Polt to lift up the command center and GTFO from that location, but Stephano's taken the center. He's taken the north base now, and I was going to say, oh my god, are we going to see the same as last game? But no, this time Polt has tanks in siege mode. He has a decent amount of medivacs here and will be able to replenish them. Also, Polt is building a couple of, just finishing up with a couple of extra command centers for those mules to keep his economy high no matter how many counterattacks happen, and can even start to sack a few SCVs eventually to make his army overall stronger. But Stephano's allowing Polt to get a planetary fortress in the south side. A bit of lack of information there, and we do see that double medivac drop heading to the north side, but Stephano did see it.
Yeah, he moves in, takes a little bit of fire as he does, but the cleanup is nice and simple. He sadly doesn't have an infested there to stop it from getting away, and it's actually going to go right for the main. There's not a lot of Lings left in there. It might actually be uncharacteristically a drop that does damage against Stephano.
And he is going to drop in there. Stephano streaming Lings, but at the same time that Polt pulls into the main base, Polt moves to the north and kills off another expansion. A nice little maneuver there by Polt. Very
good indeed, and Stephano does not have the units for it. He loses a lot as well. The units lost is actually the craziest thing to watch. The efficiency of Polt here is fantastic. Stephano is not trading efficiently at all, and it's taking a lot of damage in the process. Another base down.
Indeed, and Polt is playing this so well. He's not making hardly any mistakes here, and Stephano needs a mistake to be made, such as leaving this command center naked down here. It will go down super easily, but if he catches this army of Polt unsieged, maybe he can do well, but the army supply is telling us a pretty different story. It's 90 supply for Zerg, 122 for Polt, and his upgrades are incredibly good now, as you can see in the production tab. Almost up +3 in the Marines and Marauders, and +3 on the tanks as well.
Yeah, even grabbing building armor, which is wonderful. In the super late game against the Ling heavy style, building armor is incredibly good. It really does increase the time that you've got with your planetary fortress alive. And a quick cleanup there. Scout is dealt with, but once again, pressure keeps coming in. Polt.
He can't lose this base. He cannot lose this center base in the middle. Stephano has to go now. If he loses it, he won't have the economy.
He's all the way over it, and he does save that base by the looks of it. The tanks are doing significant damage here. Infested Terrans rain down on top of them, but look at that rank upon rank of tanks, and so many Ultralisks destroyed as well. He made Stephano pay for that defense.
Yeah, that was really good for Stephano to hold on, but he's losing all the Ultralisks, and only infested Terrans left. A few Lings. Reinforcements come from Polt, and that is going to be enough to hold on to this position and reinforce and get ready to move down again. The income has dropped down to 1,400 minerals, but 700, actually it's not too bad for Stephano, but he just doesn't have the army to fight.
Polt is basically playing the way Stephano does at the moment. Constant pressure from all sides all the time, and Stephano's actually going to pieces at the moment. Polt is doing this incredibly well. He's adapted to the style successfully over this map, and is now pressuring this vitally important base, which is most likely going to die now.
The use and micro of tanks has been key for Polt here, and I don't mean micro of controlling them all the time, but having them and resorting back to them and making sure he's target firing on the correct units, such as the Ultralisk and not the Zerglings and in the infested Terran. So very, very good control here by Polt, and that base goes down, and as we just said, he can't lose that. and he has. And now his income will drop down. He's taken another base in the bottom right, but guess where the next focus point is going to be, Total Biscuit?
He's going to roll right down there, and he's already proved very effective in doing so. Creep spread not so great down there either, so these tanks can start to crawl there and also cut this in half. Cut in half reinforcements. There's a potential to be surrounded, but Polt has superior numbers. Stephano gets in there just before the tanks deploy. Nicely done. He kills quite a few. The fungal is really good as well. Stephano fighting here once again, but he just doesn't have enough units now.
Not this time, Stephano. 194 supply for Polt, who's scanning, getting rid of the creature tumors, and will unlock the last efficiently mining base for Stephano. And as that goes down, down will economy of Stephano fall.
Oh, it will indeed. And Polt has adapted successfully to this style. It's going to force Stephano to play differently next game. And Polt smashes his way through the remainder of the defenses. GG!